prior to working in law enforcement, she worked for 3 different retail organizations in the loss prevention department, and she was in charge of handling large scale investigations, both internally with employee theft and external theft. And outside of work, she also enjoys being with family and friends. Big in euchre.
Yes.
Loves euchre and trivia, playing trivia, and her wife of 12 years, and they don't have any kids, but they have 3 wiener dogs that they shower with love and attention. So we're very delighted to have Chief Burge here, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Very good.
Well, thank you. Or not.
Thank you. So I will start off by saying I'm no public speaker. I'm much better at being a police officer than I am at being a public speaker. So please be patient with me. But so I have to pay the tax. In my introduction, I had talk of my wiener dogs and my family. Then I've got to include them in there. So my female wiener dog here this is Maddie, and she's blind and deaf. She was born that way. Just a birth defect. We get a lot of compliments on her saying how beautiful she is, her eyes, and it's actually a birth defect, but it's what makes her beautiful. The middle is Miles, and on the very end, pictured with me is Benjamin. He's my old man. He's about 9-10 years old almost, so he's slowing down. Then, of course, my wife and I there just attending an Ohio State game and then on vacation, and a separate photo. Her name is Chrissy. So Chrissy, yep, Christine, real name, she goes by Chrissy. So, all right, so let's jump into prepared, not scared. So why does this matter? Why is emergency preparedness matter? First and foremost, it can happen anywhere. I'm sure everyone in this room has experienced some kind of emergency, and we never know when it's going to happen, what it's going to be, and sometimes how to handle it. So the best way to handle these things appropriately is to be prepared. The more prepared we are, the more we practice, the better we're going to feel, the more comfortable we are, and the better we're going to come out on the other end of it. So in law enforcement, that's why we train constantly, because when we face emergencies, which is on a day-to-day basis, we have to be prepared for that. So training is what gets us there, and that's a little bit about what this presentation is for. So first thing, I think it's really important to understand how we respond in an emergency, right? So, and forgive me if I need to speak up or slow down, I tend to speak very fast. Just holler at me, I'm happy to do that. So all of us have those human reactions to emergencies, and most of us, I think, are familiar with the 3 big ones, which is freeze, flight, and fight. So freeze is exactly what it sounds like. You know, in a day-to-day interaction, maybe not a crisis or an emergency, we might even experience this when we get caught off guard by maybe we get an aggressive email from somebody. Maybe we get confronted on something, or just have an overly confrontational interaction, and you don't know what to say. You freeze. It's just your biological response to feeling threatened, if you will. And a little known fact about the way we respond, all of us, while we can experience all of these different things, all of us, when we're in stress, tend to gravitate towards one. So it's just who we are biologically, whether we freeze, flight, fight, or fawn. So flight, also a well-known one. This is when you just want to get away, right? I just have to get myself out of this situation. So same thing, we're experiencing a confrontation of some kind. And instead of that freeze, we just want to say, I got to get out of here. I don't want to face this right now. Perfectly normal. It's, again, a part of that biological response. Fight, you might respond in kind. What'd you say to me? You don't talk to me that way. And no, that's our fight response. And it all goes back to our caveman days. Now, fawn, I think, is one that a lot of us aren't that familiar with. So fawn is when you try to appease or avoid conflict. Also a perfectly normal response, but something that was added to this list, I think, in the last decade or two, because the more that our biological responses get researched, the more they identify. So fawn is when you try to appease or avoid conflict. People please, right? So you're the one in the confrontation who's saying, you're right, it's okay, don't worry about it. When in fact, you know, they aren't right. Or maybe you do want to say your piece, but you're having your biological response to it. In more emergency type situations, so things that we deal with. So if we are on scene with a domestic violence situation, somebody who has a fawn response might be trying to clean up. Everything's okay here, don't worry about it, just picking up clothing and turning furniture and things like that. So I think it's important that we understand how we respond, because if we know how we respond, then we have to know how to get ourselves out of that response to be able to keep ourselves safe, right? So sounds so simple. It's like telling someone who's upset, calm down. That always works, right? How many times has someone told you to calm down when you're upset? I hate that. Oh, I hate it when someone says calm down. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't think of that. I'll just calm down. Absolutely. But breathe. It sounds so simple, but it's so true. Before you speak, before you act, take those big deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth, and repeat. Just keep doing that until you feel yourself kind of be grounded. From there, name what's happening. So whatever situation you're in, say it, speak to it. This is an emergency. I've got to do something. I've got to get myself safe. This is an emergency. I know what to do. Do it. By speaking it, putting it into action, your body will actually respond. It'll get you out of that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn that you're stuck in. Scan for what you can do. Maybe you're stuck, you're internalizing, this is an emergency, I need to act, but you can't make yourself do it, so scan. Do I need to call 911? Do I need to get myself to safety? Or can you help someone while you're out there? Any small act can help break one of those cycles, one of those freeze, flight, fight, or fawns. And remember, you don't have to be perfect. All you're trying to do is be prepared enough to override the panic and get yourself to safety, and if possible, help someone else. That's it. You don't have to be perfect. All right, so some of the things that we're gonna do. So we've gotten ourselves out of that freeze, flight, fight thing. What do we do now? Of course, 911. Now I have listed up here, this is one of my favorite expressions, blood, flood, or fire. Who's heard it before? No? So the reason I like blood, flood, or fire is because I think it really puts into perspective when we should call 911 and when we shouldn't, right? So believe it or not, I find that people, even though we do have people call 911 when you shouldn't call 911, it's more often the opposite. We have people call our non-emergency number when they should have called 911. Everyone's so afraid of inundating services, or maybe it's not a big deal. I have a steak knife, it's in my foot, but it's not a big deal. Everybody calm down. No, well, that's a big deal. Let's get you some help, right? So knowing when to call 911. So I think these three do a really good job of highlighting when to call. So first things first, blood. Obvious. If you're seeing blood, if you've hurt yourself in a way that you see blood, that's the obvious thing. But blood can also mean other things. So when you hear blood, flood, or fire, you should think blood. Is anyone hurt? Is anyone unconscious? Could this lead to someone being hurt, unconscious, or is there an immediacy to act? Is somebody not breathing? That kind of thing. Now, flood. Obviously, flood. Yeah, you're going to call 911 if you're in the middle of a flood. But flood could also mean, so speaking metaphorically, somebody who's so inundated and overwhelmed with what's happening. Well, and you may not even know what's happening, but somebody who's so overwhelmed that they can't care for themselves or they can't act might need you to call 911 for them. Fire. So we're talking about total chaos. You know, I think of, did anyone see recently on the news? And it was July 4th out of Huber Heights. There was kind of a false alarm. Some kids had thrown some firecrackers in a metal trash can. And when it set off, it sounded like someone shooting. Yeah. So people way far away, all they saw was chaos. They didn't even hear it because they were too far away, but they saw chaos. Now you don't know what's going on, but you know something's not right, right? And probably someone's called 911, but the worst thing you can do in that situation is assume somebody else is already called. So that's a situation that would be fire or chaos where you want to make contact with 911. Now our non-emergency, that's everything else. So everything else, you have a welfare check, you want us to check on a friend. You've got parking complaint, or you've seen somebody driving erratically. Now, assuming they're not actually a threat to any immediate cars around them or anything like that, they're just swerving a little bit, you can call non-emergency for that. Basically anything that doesn't fall into that blood, flood, or fire category. Now, what you want to expect when you call. So you've already gotten yourself out of that panic. You've gotten yourself ticked in, you know what to do, you've called 911, or maybe you called non-emergency. The dispatcher's going to answer the phone. What we need to be prepared with, right? Now, dispatchers are very highly trained, and their training is specific to asking you a bunch of questions you don't want to answer. because you are having a really bad day and you just want someone there right now. We get that. Both police, fire, EMS, and dispatchers, we are all trained to understand that whatever emergency we're responding to is not our emergency. And that might seem cold or like the human in us isn't there. It's like, how many of you have heard a phone call from a dispatcher where someone's just screaming on the end, begging for help, and the dispatcher saying, what's your location? Where are you? You need to tell me where you are. Sounds very cold, doesn't it? But that dispatcher has to get the relevant information. They have to stay calm. And the best way for them to do that is to remember that their emergency is not my emergency. So when it's time to call, typically even in this order, the most important thing is where are you? Where are you? And the reason we ask where first before anything else is so we can get people started. Because that dispatcher is going to stay on the phone with you long after they've got people started, right? That is probably the #1 complaint we get from callers. They're on the phone, they're getting asked all these questions. I told you where I am, I told you my name, told you what's going on. Just send people. We have, from the time you told us where you are, we've got people started your way. So you told us where, people are headed your way. Now we're going to go through all this other stuff. So I can let those people come in your way, know everything they have to, that I can give them so they know what they're walking into and they're better prepared to help. So when you're thinking about where, if you don't know exactly where you are, which by the way, it's a really good common practice for personal safety and self-awareness, always take a peek at where you are. So if you're driving to a location you've never been to, you pass a street sign, just make a mental note of that sign. Because if a half a mile up the road, you haven't seen another sign, you have a car accident, you'll remember that last sign you just passed. Or maybe a mile marker, or maybe a really odd building that looked tore up, but was probably a beautiful church back in the day. Think about these things to know where you are in the event of an emergency. I need to know where I'm at and be able to tell somebody where I'm at. So what? That comes next. So you've told the dispatcher where you are, you've given them either an exact address or a landmark of some kind. Now they need to know what's going on, okay? So we got to tell that dispatcher as calmly as possible. And we might not even know it sometimes, but when we're relaying information, especially when we've snapped ourselves out of it enough to call 911, but now we feel a little bit more relaxed, so we might go back into that stress mode, that freeze, flight, fight, or fawn. And so if we're back in that stress mode, we might say, I need somebody out here, he's hurt. Well, who's he? How is he hurt? Is he bleeding? Is he conscious? Is he breathing? And all of a sudden you're overwhelmed again. Just why are you asking so many questions? And we've come full circle. So remember throughout this whole process, keep doing that breathing. We call it tactical breathing. It calms the nerves. So what, as calmly as possible, tell the dispatcher. Try to stick to the facts that actually require a response. It's very normal, it's human for us to try to give more details than are necessary. I'm out, I'm with a gentleman I don't know, he's not breathing. We're at this location. Perfect. All of the, well, I was on a road trip and on my way out, we were headed to the Finger Lakes and it's just human instinct to kind of give the information. Next is going to be who. So if you're not calling for yourself, do you have information about who you're out with? Maybe you don't know their name, but what are they wearing? When were they last seen? If you just were involved in a crime, whether as a victim or as a witness, knowing what the person is wearing is crucial. They're going to ask you everything from race to height to gender, everything. And everyone also gets a little bit upset about that too. Well, gosh, I don't remember. Just tell me what you do. It's okay. Just tell me what you do remember. And then last, the dispatcher is going to talk about when. It's very, well, I won't say very common, but it's not uncommon for us to receive a call about an emergency or a non-emergency. And we've gotten all this information, we got units started, and at the very end of the conversation, someone says, so anyway, this all happened last week. And we're, oh, units, you can slow down. So when is very important as well. So we'll get there. Did this just occur? Is it still happening? Can you still see them? Is the emergency still in progress? Because not only do you have to keep in mind that it's important for us to get people to you fast, or if it's not important for us to get to you fast, if we are responding fast, we could potentially be putting, it's always a risk for us to drive fast, lights and sirens. So if we don't have to, we try not to. We try not to, right? So, any questions so far? All right, so some of the things we can do to be prepared. So let's talk about actual preparedness. So little known program with the YSPD I think it just kind of started organically, but now we've put a formal name to it and we kind of try to promote it as much as we can. And it's for everybody. It's not just for senior citizens. It's not for forgetful people. It's for everybody. So we called it the Safe Key Program. So we will keep a spare key for anyone who desires us to do so down at the police department, which is only accessible by our police officers. In the event that, let's say you're somebody who locks yourself out all the time. We've got a couple of those in town. They know it. They know they're going to lock their keys in their car, or they're going to forget them when they walk out of their house. So they just give us an extra key. And when it happens, they call us up. We pull it out of the drawer and go on over there and help them into their house. The Safe Key Program is also helpful for somebody who lives alone or somebody who's often alone by themselves. Maybe they fall a lot or they have other medical issues or concerns. If we have a key, we can get in without damaging any property. And that's super important, I know, because sometimes it's just a fall. You just need help getting up. It's not an emergency. You don't need to go to the hospital. You just need help getting up. And we don't want to break your door down and have to get you up. I've seen officers shimmy themselves through windows, and that's unsafe for us. So if we have a key, it's safer for everybody and better for your property. Now that Safe Key Program, it's best for those types of situations. You've locked yourself out. It's not an emergency. The Knox Box program, that's something that the fire department is running or does run. And I believe it's a national program. I'm happy to get those resources if folks are interested from our local Assistant Fire Chief, Nate Ayers. Essentially, Knox Box is a small box that is on the outside of your home. And it's one of two things. Either it has a unique code for your home, or if it's one of the master keys, then it's a master key that the fire department has on them at all times. Now, if it's a unique code, the fire department we have a system, a computerized system, and when we respond to an address, that call screen will automatically tell us what that code is. So that if the fire department needs to get in, they just hit the code, the key pops out, and they can get in. Nobody else has access to that except for law enforcement and fire. It's a wonderful program. I highly recommend either of these for anybody in town who's comfortable with it. And I can't reiterate enough, neither of them are ever used without your consent or without what would be called assumed consent. So you're unconscious and you need our assistance, that kind of thing.
They have up that independent living people at Friends Care. Out the nuts.
Yep, they sure do. Yep, and anyone can get one. You don't even have to be an independent living. Anyone can get one. Highly recommend. We use them definitely on a weekly basis. So very good.
Excuse me.
Yes. That's the what I was just talking about with the fire department. So they have them on the outside of your house. You could probably even find them that aren't formal Knox boxes. Like you could buy one personally, like a hide-a-key. It's like a hide-a-key.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like a hide-a-key.
It's on the outside of your house, so we can get easy to see.
It is, however, the actual formal Knox boxes, those ones have a higher level of security. So as I was saying, either the fire department has a master key for it, that's the only key that can get in there, or it's a unique code that only the fire department knows. So, yep. So both of those I highly recommend. All right, a couple other preparedness pieces. Keep a list of medications. We all probably do that. I have a running list in my phone of all my wife's and I's medications in the event of an emergency. It's under my ice contacts. A printed copy is great to have. The fridge is a wonderful location. It's the first place we check. It's not something anyone ever trained us to do. It's just the first place we check because it's the most common place people hang stuff like that. On that list, not only should your medications be listed, allergies, emergency contacts. If you use medical alert devices, make sure they're charged and worn. It seems so straightforward and so common sense, but the amount of times that we have responded out to somebody who had fallen and they're wearing a medical alert device, but it never alerted anyone. It wasn't charged. It wasn't charged. So it's critical that we take care of those things. Know your evacuation routes and your safe spaces. Some of us might already have these outlined. So for storms, if you don't have a basement, where are you going to go? Bathroom, right? Most inner room of your home. If you need to get out of your house, let's say there's a fire at your front door, you can't make it out your front door. How are you gonna get out? Do you have a back door? If you don't have a back door, I know yeah, absolutely. I'm terrible about it. I'll stack stuff up behind my back door all the time. So if I'm trying to push it out, it's terrible. I'm sitting here giving advice and I know darn well I need to go home and clear the back door probably. But But that's another key thing for us to think about. We go into homes throughout the village all the time where it's difficult for first responders to get in and out. And it's not that the home isn't kept up or clean, it's just that folks don't think about where that table is. Or where the Amazon packages for Christmas that they just delivered and packaged up are. And it makes it difficult to get a gurney in for medical personnel or for officers to make their way back to check on somebody. So keep these things in mind. I can fit through here, no problem, but could a gurney? Could a couple first responders? Have a small emergency kit. So we talked about our safe spaces. If we have an emergency kit, are we keeping it where our safe space is? Are we keeping it where we would need it? So that emergency kit doesn't have to be anything fancy. A flashlight, batteries for the flashlight, backup chargers, water. I also recommend keeping one in your car. This one has come in handy for me before when I've been out and about and I've had car troubles. And for the one in your car, a blanket and a couple snacks will do you a lot of good. Tell you that. Don't know how long you'll wait on AAA in a snowstorm, that's for sure. Stay informed. What's more important than being in the know, right? If anyone here follows us on social media, whether it be the Village of Yellow Springs or the newly put in place Village PD page, whenever we put a PSA out, almost the first thing we say is, don't call dispatch, keep the lines free. And that's because we get so inundated with phone calls about power outages and people wanting to know, hey, when is this gonna pass? Or when are we gonna? I assure you, the second we know and we're able to update you, we will. But when we get all 3,500 people in the village calling us, that really bogs down those lines. And I usually only have one dispatcher on who's answering 2 or 3 phones at a time, trying to juggle all that. So staying informed is key. So we've got our, like I said, our village Facebook page. If you have social media, we've got the police department Facebook page. Hyperreach, everybody familiar with Hyperreach? Good. No, you're not familiar? So today I brought some resources in the back. There are some cards and a flyer that will stay here if you guys are willing to put it up. I think it would be great for folks to see.
You have it.
Just giving you a way to sign up for Hyperreach. Now Hyperreach is emergency. You get a Hyperreach, that's communication from Greene County saying there is an emergency. It could be specific to Yellow Springs, it could be specific to Greene County on a greater scale, but if you're receiving a Hyperreach, it's for emergencies.
And that's a phone call, right?
It can be a phone call, it can be a text message, it could be an email, you could opt for all 3, whatever you want. Yep, whatever you want. Now, if you have a landline phone, you're automatically enrolled, automatically. But if you have a cell phone and you've opted out of the landline, which I know a lot of folks are going to these days to save a little bit of money, then you won't be automatically enrolled. You'll need to sign up for that. And again, that's all back there. Very easy to do. I can help anyone with that. Now, YS Connect, this is our newest resource. YS Connect is for non-emergency notifications. So that annoying road closure you didn't know about, or, you know, the park's going to be under construction and inaccessible. The dog park's going to be closed. All the stuff the village wants you to know. And they really do try to tell you anything and everything. So YS Connect is great. I brought the exact same resource for Hyperreach for YS Connect to help you guys get signed up for that if you're interested. And that can also be, I believe that's also phone call, text message, or email. So you can do all 3.
That's not landline.
That one is not landline. That is an application on your phone. Good question. Yep. Have you used it?
Yes,
Do you enjoy it?
I enjoy talking about.
Do you find it useful?
I do actually,
Good.
yeah, well, most of it is coming out of Canada, and what they're doing for public services that week. Every week, they
Yeah.
start off with, you know, what to do around the village.
Yeah.
That's pretty handy to know that.
I think so. Absolutely. Whatever fixes potholes. Yeah, absolutely.
Just, so the police station. I can buy something.
And in that app, it'll actually link you directly to these other 3. So even downloading just the YS Connect app, you can find resources for Hyperreach and both of our Facebook pages. So last but not least, you're not alone. You are not alone, whether it be your neighbors, the friends we have here at the Senior Citizen Center, a stranger on the street, but of course us, we are here for you. Do not hesitate to call. I talked earlier about you know, the hesitation to call 911 or even non-emergency as to not bog us down, call us. Please, please call us. We are here for you guys. That's our whole job, is to serve the community. So. What questions do you guys have? Yes, ma'am.
I have a comment and a question. My comment is, when I park on the street parallel parking and I have my cane and I move slowly.
Sure.
It is sometimes very scary getting out of my car. But interestingly enough, the 18-wheeler drivers will stop for me.
Oh, good. That's good.
They've been very good about that.
So,
Unfortunately, the women in SUVs don't pay attention when I try to back into a parking place. I wish we could reroute people
Oh, gosh.
around the village, but there's no way. to do that.
parking is always one of those like hot button topics, right?
Yeah.
So I assume you mean
Yeah.
on
On the
Senior,
main- on
yeah,
the
on
main
Senior Avenue.
My question really has to do with our.
Okay.
If that happens,
Mhm.
which could. What should we do? What are the police set up to do in case we have any, not ice on the roads? People coming in.
Sure, I know what you meant. So one thing I can't reiterate enough when this conversation comes up is ICE is a federal organization and they have their own federal business. We do not call them or partner with them. We don't assist them. There is nothing that we have. They're a completely separate entity. And a lot of conversation, this usually comes up when I think people are curious about, well, what if they ask for assistance? It would be so rare for them to do that. We would not do that. Furthermore, the reason I say that is because what we would simply say is, we're a small agency, we're tied up right now.
Yeah, you can't help, then you can't help if they come in.
Now, can't help and don't help are two different things. So could we help? Lawfully, we could. But would we?
Not help them, help the people that they're.
Oh, I understand. I'm sorry. Okay. No, we could not do that. So as far as like giving warnings, things like that, we couldn't. That would be considered obstruction of justice, unfortunately. So,
That's right.
yeah. Good.
What's the current law or legality about videotaping an incident such as somebody being kidnapped?
Yeah, great question. You can film anything. You are, as a private citizen, it is your right to not only film anything in public, but especially anything your public servants are doing. That's your right, 100%. Yeah. Mhm.
That's a good question, because you see these Karen things all the time on YouTube, and they say, I didn't give you permission to,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If it's viewable in the public, it's lawfully allowed to be recorded. I don't know
Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. So if, now, I can think of a couple examples, like somebody puts their face up against your window when you're inside your private residence. It's a little bit different just because they might argue, well, I could see it. Well, if you put your face up against my window, you could on my property, which you're trespassing on. But, about a year and a half ago now, we had, they're called First Amendment auditors, and they will come into town. They're very popular on YouTube, very popular on the internet, and they will essentially come in and they will intentionally film things that people would normally assume are quite sensitive, right? So maybe walk into a bank and film the lobby. Maybe walk around and, take pictures of people just doing random things, just to make them feel unnerved, right? Because what are people naturally gonna do? They're gonna call the police. Something's weird. This is weird. Because we've trained people to do the right thing, which is if you see something, say something. So police respond, and when they do, they'll inquire with the individual, what are you up to? And the individual will say, nothing. And then inevitably it results in some areas in officers unfortunately trying to compel identification and all these things, when in reality, the person wasn't breaking any laws. Or breaking any laws. So about a year and a half ago, we had one come here, and Officer Doug Andrus, Mason. Officer Doug Andrus responded out to that one and did everything appropriately, thankfully, and just essentially made contact with the gentleman. And hey, I'm just asking, if you want to give me your information and tell me what you're doing, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. And then tried to explain, of course, to the caller that what he was doing was legal. So perfectly legal to record in public. It's a very common misconception. Yeah.
I remember I was once in Dayton. I used to work in Dayton. So I was coming back from lunch, and because I'm a New Yorker, I was kind of crossing the street against the light, and an officer stopped me.
Oh.
And he asked me for identification, and I told him.
This was here?
No, they know.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
And it so happens that when I took those walks, I did not carry any identification with me, nothing with me. So I said, you know, I will tell you all my truthful information about me and stuff, but if you want identification, you have to come up to the, what do you put, my office and stuff. Because my attitude is I was going to cooperate. If I was going to get a ticket for jaywalking or whatever you call it, I'm okay with that. But when I got back to the office, I was in the office and I talked with the lawyers in the office. And I said, you know, the first thing they asked me for was identification. And you don't have to give identification to an officer. I mean, you know, and that's my understanding. I
So,
mean,
I'll, I can clarify that, because I assume the question is that accurate, right?
yeah.
So the only time you are compelled to identify yourself when you're in an interaction with a police officer is if they have probable cause to believe, and in some circumstances, reasonable suspicion to believe that a crime has been committed. And by crime, you'll see a lot of these videos on the internet. Sometimes people want to try and press that traffic offenses aren't crimes. They are in fact crimes, so you do have to identify yourself. You'll see videos of officers who have interactions with a passenger of a vehicle and they ask for identification. Now, as a passenger of a vehicle, you aren't required to identify yourself unless they suspect an offense has been committed. Oftentimes, they'll observe someone in the car without their seatbelt on. That's an offense. So they would compel identification in that case. So if they are saying, at the end of the day, the advice I give, especially to young people, and I'll give the same advice here, is arguing with an officer or disagreeing with an officer is never one on the street, it's one in the court. It is one in the courtroom. And while that's not a easy and quick fix, it's a safe fix for everybody involved. And justice will prevail.
Well, my attitude is if a police officer gives me an order, I will obey the order and question it later. The officer was asking me for ID, which I didn't have. And I was just simply saying, you need to come up to my office. Now, it so happens I work for a law firm called Redfries and Arnold that represented the Dayton Police Department. In other words, on the defense side, when they were being sued.
Sure.
And so when I told him that, he just let me go and so on and so forth. But, you know.
Seems strange that in Ohio, you'd have time to worry about that, right? My goodness.
Well, on the other hand, though, you know, I did cross against the light. But anyway, one last question is this. In Yellow Springs, the main reason I get in touch with the police department is over lost dogs and the mental health issues where I feel like someone needs to be checked in on, and it's not like an emergency or anything like that. These are things where I kind of perceive the person is not in a safe situation and so on. And it's never like I've never felt that the police are going to harm that person. But then you hear these stories, you know. It so happens one time a man was in the cold and it was raining cold and he was not doing anything to protect himself from the rain and the cold. And I just, when I passed by the police station, I said somebody ought to check on that guy. And then, you know, things happen where you suddenly start to think, well, geez, you know, if I send a police officer over, am I putting that person in this way and stuff? It was kind of like.
Well, I hope you feel here in Yellow Springs that we try to approach those situations differently. Obviously, we have the addition of Florence in 2018, which was a huge win for our department. We just passed that we're actually going to be hiring another full-time Florence. Not that there's ever a second Florence that exists, but we'll have two full-time community outreach specialists on board. And that has really, I won't say changed, but I think it has improved and done nothing but made our approach with mental health issues much better. Now, one thing that I will address that I think is a common misconception is it's very rare, if ever, that Florence would go out by herself. So, and that's common with social workers or advocates of all types and all areas. So we'll almost always send an officer with Florence when she's going out to check on somebody for her safety. Now, the officer might not even communicate or interact with the person, but they're there in the event that something were to happen. so that she has them, but you know, I can also, I'll expand upon that response as well to say, sometimes there are situations, as you say, where somebody's having a mental health crisis and they need help. And maybe they don't want help, but they need it. And sometimes we have interacted or tried to intervene in a cooperative way, meaning getting that person to understand or to accept that they need help, which is difficult because you're trying to rational somebody who right now is in an irrational place. So we have the authority to, when we can articulate that someone needs assistance for mental health issues, we can do what's called an emergency admission. And those are extreme circumstances, but they happen. Now, when that happens, there are times where officers use what would be considered, what we would define as force. So actually taking someone against their will to be seen medically, to be evaluated, to get that mental health help. And again, that's rare, but there are times where that has to happen because someone's just not caring for themselves. As you mentioned in your example, outside in sub-degree temperatures with inappropriate clothing and having what we call loss of reality, where they just don't even know what's going on.
Standing next to an awning, but not doing anything to protect themselves from the rain, and it's really cold and so on.
Sure.
But at any rate, I mean, I think Florence was great,
Oh.
and so on, and, you know, to me, it's just incredible that a little town like this puts a resource, you know.
We're the first in the state of Ohio.
No, seriously, and so.
And now they're all over the place. Yeah, people call her all the time to, hey, we're putting this in place, tell us how it works, when did it start? So, and trendsetters for sure. Yes, ma'am.
So I have an off-topic question.
Yeah, of course.
I'm curious how the things in the street in front of the traffic lights work, that where you pull up and how does that work?
The timers on the light? So that's probably a better question for Tanner Bussey, being the street supervisor, but my knowledge of them, and I don't want to misspeak or purport to know, to be an expert on that type of thing, is that it's essentially a weight, like your vehicle weight is what's setting off the alarm or the timer. There's one light in town I know is, I would bet my paycheck that there is no timer in that thing. It's the one at 3:43. But yeah, that's a question for Tanner. If that's something you'd like me to follow up on, I'm happy to ask that and get you an actual answer.
Okay.
3:43, they don't stop where they should.
Exactly. I think that's what it is.
That's
Right. That's probably what
They
it is.
pull past the white
Yep.
line and
Yep.
then they wait for 5 minutes
Yep.
and then they get mad and they make a left turn. I see it
You are right.
all the time.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. For sure.
So it's not magnetic?
No, I don't think there's
Okay,
anything magnetic.
Because I was under the impression, well,
A bike will trigger it though. A bicycle alone will trigger it.
yeah, but sometimes in my car, I feel like I'm not really on it, I'm like around it. It's not wide enough to have the car.
Yeah,
Sitting on it.
I'm happy to ask Tanner. He would be the man with the knowledge on that one, that's for sure. Sure.
Thank
I can send you his email address. What other questions are there? Nothing else?
Questions about anything?
Anything?
So how are you planning to? State passes the requirement that please cooperate with us.
So we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier.
Sorry.
No, you're okay, you're okay. So right now, as it stands, I said I can't reiterate enough that viewing local law enforcement, at least here, because I can only speak for Yellow Springs, viewing local law enforcement and federal law enforcement agents, we are two totally separate entities. We do not deal with immigration issues. That is not a priority. That is not even, to say it's not a priority is even a gross understatement. That's not on our radar at all. Now, as far as the bill passing, I won't purport to know that all the language of the bill, but I'm not sure why those efforts are even in place, because technically right now, if ICE were to have some sort of business in the village of Yellow Springs and demand our response, there's some legalities behind what we have to and can deny cooperating with. So why they would pass a bill that says that you have to cooperate seems to me to be a redundancy. But yeah, we're gonna continue business as usual. We understand what the village of Yellow Springs priorities are, and we're on board.
But just reiterate what your response was that you said like.
Oh, I said, we work in a small town. We probably only have one officer on, we're too busy. We're too busy. Our officers probably tied up. We're too busy.
I was glad that you found that person.
Oh,
Well,
we were glad to. We were glad to. Yeah, it's, whenever I talk about some of these more, intricate investigations, if you will, I always reiterate that there's a little bit of a CSI effect, I think, where we get, so, I mean, I do it myself. I work in law enforcement and I still see stories about how long crimes go unsolved for, whatever the case may be, and I still get the impatient factor where I'm like, how have they not caught this guy? I mean, it seems so obvious. And that's coming from my perspective in law enforcement, but the fact is that you never ever want to make an arrest or proceed with a prosecution until you have the evidence to support it. So we do extremely thorough investigations, and we would rather take longer and make a good arrest than make a mistake, that's for sure. So that's for sure. So these things just take time. They're tedious. They're not like on TV where they can click a button and all of a sudden they did facial recognition and identified somebody. So
Within an hour.
yeah, I know, right? Like I wish.
I'm sorry I was late.
No.
I'm just wondering if there's any message you have to us as far as, you know, if there's anything we can do to help.
To help? That's an interesting question. You know, I don't think I have a response for anything you can do to help other than to just, you know, be kind, be patient. As far as the topic at hand, I always want to promote, no matter what age, no matter what day, no matter where you are, even in Yellow Springs, Ohio, I can't reiterate enough the importance of self-awareness, situational awareness, being aware of what's going on around you at all times, keeping yourself safe. We can get into a complacent mode when we live in such a safe area like Yellow Springs. And I think that's also why things like what we just experienced with the break-ins is so alarming, because we do live in a safe place. So when something happens, it's crazy. It's like out of the ordinary, which I'm glad that's out of the ordinary. You know, the measurement of a good police department is the absence of crime, right? But the fact is that crime does happen. It doesn't matter where you are. People are victimized. It doesn't matter where you are. And the best thing you can do for yourself is always maintain that situational awareness. Know where you are, know who's around you, and know how to get help if help is needed.
I'll add a comment that one of the cooperative things we have with our police department is that the senior center maintains an emergency contact for almost every one of our members. So when you sign up your membership, there's a little box on there, emergency contact. So that's one more step that the police have often called us to say, we can't get a hold of Jane Smith. Do you know who would know where she is? So
I'd say that happens weekly, probably.
Probably.
And most of the time they say, we just picked him up for an appointment.
yes.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, Park Meadows also has some.
oh, really? No.
Yeah, the Clancy, the president, we had, well, when Ken Doms died, nobody knew it for like 3 days. You know, and so she's really on a rampage to get everybody whoever would be willing to do it.
Sure.
Let the trustees know who their contact is. And I think maybe half or 2/3 of the people there did so.
Good. That's great. That's very good information.
If you ever need to call Marianne, you know, they got that.
Okay. Absolutely. Thank you. Anytime we have a resource, we try and tap into every resource we can before we unnecessarily break down a door.
Yeah.
Remember the safe key program. I was talking about that before you guys arrived. We keep keys down at the police department for anybody who likes to, would like to give us a spare key for you locked yourself out of your house, or you just want us to have one in case you, you know, fall one day, or you have another medical emergency. That way we're not breaking doors down if we don't have to. So, yeah. So we do that. Absolutely.
Speaking of locks, so. I don't know, we are lock our door just every time we walk out.
Sure.
So is that really bad idea?
Well, I'm a police officer, so I'm always gonna say, lock your doors, lock your cars, shut your garage doors. You know, this is kind of very like and similar to what we just experienced with the businesses. where we can't reiterate enough that just taking steps to protect yourself and not assuming that you're always going to be safe. Probably 9 times out of 10, you could live here for 60 years, and for 59 years and 364 days, you've never had to lock your door, but one day you did and you didn't. And so just take the precautionary measure and keep a key with you. What's the worst that could happen? You lock yourself out? Well, good news, you gave a spare to the Yellow Springs Police Department, and we can come and help you get back in your house. So just protect yourself, So that's the best advice.
I had a break-in from an open window, and I'm convinced that one, first of all, it was a
Juvenile, and second,
second, it might,
might very well have been an out-of-town juvenile. We have out-of-towners coming here, and a lot of out-of-town.
juveniles coming here also.
It so
Happens that I called,
the police, and when
when we went into my
house together, they said, did they do this? But the house was kind of just a mess. It was all.
You should have said, absolutely.
no, actually, this is how I left
it.
then.
I said, I don't see anything that's missing. But then they said to me, do you drink? And I said, no. And wait a minute. Oh, I have a bottle of rum cakes, and that was gone. So that's why
And also, I did leave my wallet in
to see the movie,
the Joker that night. The one with the guy who actually,
the actor killed himself.
it was a good movie. I still don't regret going to that
Movie and stuff, it was really good. But what do you call it? I left my wallet there in the house, and they took the cash that was in the wallet, but not the credit cards. They had all be canceled. They knew not to take credit cards. Sure.
But the fact that the liquor bottle was gone and nothing
Else, and just
the cash that was in a wallet. So I think it was
actually a kid. And in some ways,
you have to keep in mind that we have a lot of visitors.
and
We do,
even a lot of
yeah.
young visitors. I don't, we get high school students, I know that are coming down here and stuff.
Yeah, we have cyclical vehicle break-ins. So
Yeah.
probably once a year, you'll have a summertime crew driving around, checking for unlocked doors, and they very rarely, maybe once in my time here, have I seen somebody actually break a window. They almost always just pull on the door, wait for the ones that are unlocked.
It's an open window.
Yeah.
It was an open window, which is how they came in, so.
Well, that's right. I'm gonna lock the window. And your door.
And stuff.
Yes.
I noticed that the Chappelle was, obviously, you know about him, but, he has his own private security groups, global, I think.
Mhm.
Do you work with them at all, or is that,
Nope, we sure don't. We have a good working relationship with the Chappelle team, but I will say we have almost no contact because they do such a good job of just taking care of their own business. So I view that as a positive in my opinion. So, you know, he handles all his own stuff pretty much. So
just curious, yeah.
now the influx of traffic it brings into town, we have to deal with that.
I have found that if you have a party, or if you have like leftover cookies or treats like that, the police will take them for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, plenty of room for all that. Actually, I doubt anything that's ever been dropped off has made it more than 4 hours. So it's, it gets consumed quite quickly. We appreciate that. Thank you. Anything else?
I think we're very fortunate for the officers we have, so thank you.
Yeah, I'll pass that along. I'm always happy to.
And we missed,
Oh,
One time, a person who was a man who was very. I live on Dayton Street and it's midnight and my dog barks. And of course, I'm alone in the house. Usually my family is there, but they're all off somewhere else. So there's this drunk and he's looking around the door and the dog is barking. And I called the police and a very kind policeman came. By this time, the drunk was sitting on the edge of the porch and kind of trying to use his phone. And the policeman went up and talked to him, came back and said, he's looking for his wife and he thinks that she's house sitting somewhere around here and he thought this might be the house. And I said, well, it isn't, I'm sorry. And he showed me a picture of him and said, do you know him? I said, no. So he went back and talked with him, and then he came back to me and said, I'm just taking him home. And we were going.
We try to do that at any time we can, that's for
I think
sure.
That was such a nice encounter in all sorts of ways. He came right away.
Good. How long ago was that?
Oh, heavens, it's been a couple of years. Yeah, it's been a while. But, we do live on Dayton Street and it's only a few blocks down to the bars.
Yeah.
And
How's the noise over there?
Fine.
Good.
as
Okay.
quiet as can be
Good.
out there.
Good. We've been trying to work on some of the bar noise in those areas, so.
Yeah, I'm in the 400 bucks, so.
Okay, a little further away. Yeah, okay. Well, thank you. I always love to hear the positive stuff. We don't get a lot of positives, so I appreciate that. Thank you
I
all.
think our police are very nice.
Good.
Yes, thank you.
That's what we aim for. Well, I put those resources at the back for the HyperReach as well as for the YS Connect. If anyone needs any help with that, I'm happy. I also put together just a little one pager. We talked about putting those lists on your fridge. There's just a one pager there that has all of the important contacts, and then it has a space for you guys to put your own emergency contacts that you can put on your fridge. If they don't get used, feel free to toss them or give them to somebody
I
else.
keep
but
them here.
Otherwise, I really appreciate you guys having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
And you're a very fine public speaker.
We're not having a program in August, so enjoy your